several people have asked about the recent study we did on CEOs who led successful transformations and exactly how involved they were in the transformation and what their roles and responsibilities were. And this was not, this group of CEOs was not what you would call a mahogany row crowd. They did not sit in their offices and delegate and write memos. They were very hands-on, yet they weren't micromanagers. They were out and leading and involved in the key aspects of setting the direction and following up and making sure people had what they needed. They were also coaches. They were coaching the next generation of leaders and working with their leaders to enable them and help get them engaged and leading the journey. And at the same time, they gave feedback to, evaluated their leaders, gave feedback to them, and on a couple of occasions had to remove some leaders and hold them accountable for the journey. The other interesting thing they did, and as there's been this concept around for a few decades called MBWA, managing by wandering around. These guys had a systematic way to do MBWA. They had a schedule, they scheduled their walkarounds. In the healthcare industry, those CEOs called it rounding, and they actually made the rounds to their different employees and people that worked for them directly. And this happened at all levels. And it wasn't, how are you doing today kind of questions. They actually asked questions like, do you have the tools you need to do the job? Is there anything I can do for you? And they also gave them reinforcement and say, I heard that you had a patient comment or a good comment from here and that went it to the CEO's office or whatever. And so they gave them good feedback that reinforced the behavior that they were looking for. So they were heavily involved. They actually were coaching and coached other leaders, and they made the rounds and stayed in touch with people. And this gave, if they developed a frank two-way communication as they walked around, the developed relationships, they actually collected a lot of data and didn't have to wait for the annual employee survey to find out how things were going out on the front line. So not only did they spend time with their employees and do the rounding thing, and they also spent time listening to other stakeholders, customers, and in one organization, the senior executives actually were scheduled and spent time listening to the customer care line and what customers were complaining about and what kind of care they were needing, things like that. In another instance, the senior executives never took the staff elevator. They always took the main elevators in the hospital so that they could interact with family and patients and hear what they were saying about the organization as opposed to their staff, which they were already making the rounds with.